Hi, this is Tanya Becker, and I'm your host for today's episode of PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating. If you haven't already, please subscribe to PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any content there. Today, you're going to get a preview of the future of professional bass fishing. Drew Bradstreet is here with me. Drew is currently a senior in high school, and he comes from a family that has been very involved in the sport fishing scene for many years. His grandfather was a well-known Central Florida bass guide and tournament angler, and his dad serves as a bass fishing coach and captain. His dad is also the publisher of BassFishingInsider.com and is very involved with the bass tournament scene at both the professional and recreational levels. Drew and his brother Kamden recently had a very successful showing at the 2022 Abu Garcia Bassmaster High School National Championship, which was held on Lake Hartwell in South Carolina. We're going to talk about how the tournament went and some of the things Drew learned from the experience. But first, I wanted to learn more about why Drew is so passionate about bass fishing in general. Thanks so much for joining me, Drew.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun opportunity, a fun conversation, and it's been so fun following you in the little bit of time that we've been following you and helping to sponsor your growth in this crazy endeavor. Right?
I really appreciate the support that y'all have already given, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming season.
Awesome. So you're a senior in high school this year, but you've been fishing for a long time.
Yes.
You know, what caused you to become so interested in fishing, and especially bass fishing?
I would say pretty much just the heritage. My grandfather was a guide, pretty well-established guide on pretty big tournament lakes in Orlando, like the Kissimmee chain, Butler chain, pretty established fisheries. And he kind of passed it down to my dad, who kind of got out of it for a while, but still kind of kept the basics intact and taught us, how to fish. Like I said, the basics. And I think that at some point, I don't know, we live on a small chain of lakes, and I went out there and started fishing, and it just kind of went downhill from there. I loved it. And when I found out that there was a way to combine fishing with competition, I don't know. It's gone downhill. Like I said, I really have loved tournament fishing for the time that I've done it.
Uphill, downhill, however.
I know. Yeah.
So, so many kids now, and this wasn't completely untrue when I was a kid. Like video games are really obsessed with that kind of thing. And maybe you like video games, but you spend a ton of time fishing rather than a ton of time gaming, I would assume.
Right. Yes, for sure.
So, again, when I was growing up, kids played basketball, baseball, soccer, ran track and that kind of thing. But bass tournament fishing and just competitive fishing in general has really taken off amongst young people. What do you think is causing, kids to become so interested in fishing? Do you have any ideas?
I think I definitely, I can speak for me, and I can speak for some of the people I know in the industry and other high school anglers that compete. I think it's a way that you can go out there and compete for high stakes, similar in similar ways that you can with, baseball, basketball, soccer, like you mentioned. You can compete for high stakes, but it's also kind of a relaxed environment. You get to, typically, unless you're at a super high level, you get to compete with a friend of yours or a partner. At my level, I get to compete with my brother as a teammate and my dad, who typically gets to boat captain us. And I just think it's a way you get camaraderie, but you also get to, compete, and it's really like it's just like any other sport. You're competing in leagues for high stakes.
That's awesome. And you guys, at this high school level, you're competing for scholarship money a lot of times, right?
Yes.
At these larger tournaments.
Yes. Yes.
Which is really good. To my knowledge, growing kids don't. I guess you're competing to be recruited by a college or whatever, but
right.
not scholarship money in a specific tournament, or a baseball tournament or whatever. So that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
So do you think, do you and maybe some of your friends, other young anglers, do you see yourself as athletes?
honestly, it's not really a conversation that has come up with me among other high school anglers or anything. I know for me personally, I see it like a sport. I mean, I go out there, typical, tournament, you normally 2.5, 3 days of practice, and then 2, maybe 3 days of a tournament. You're out there at least 8 hours a day, standing on the front deck of a boat, making cast. I mean, it's a lot of times the weather can be tough. Like last tournament, Lake Hartwell National Championship, it was really hot. And which I understand, like a lot of sports, like you're in the heat, stuff like that. But it does take, I feel like it does take some conditioning and definitely some getting used to be out there for that long each and every day and kind of stay mentally sharp. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I think years ago, like auto racing, people didn't really see, auto racers as athletes, really.
Right.
But today is very different. I mean, these drivers are all in incredible shape. And I think the same thing is happening within competitive fishing. I mean, the younger guys seem to be out there in particular, seem to be very focused on being in really good shape for the endurance and stuff like you mentioned.
I agree.
So do you run or do other kind of fitness, like those like regular fitness kind of things?
I don't do specific exercises or anything. I do try to stay in shape, whether that's going to the gym and playing pickup basketball or going and playing, just basic pickup soccer or something. I do try to stay active, keep my body in shape. Because like I said, it's both a physical challenge at times, but also you have to be physically fit to stay mentally fit in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are high school, I mean, maybe you could only speak for your high school club. I mean, how are they structured? I mean, how do they operate in general?
I mean, it's honestly pretty basic. It's honestly pretty much anyone can join. You just have to, get in contact with the club director, the club president, and they'll get you hooked up with whoever, probably pair you together with a partner or pair you together with a boat captain if you don't have a boat. And that will kind of honestly set the course for wherever you're going to go as far as tournaments from there.
Cool. Are they typically affiliated with schools or other
both? There's some are affiliated with schools. The one I participate in, Seminole Junior Anglers, it's not really affiliated with a school. They just kind of travel everywhere. It's kind of a small select group of anglers, but some definitely are school related. And you have clubs and teams within schools. So,
gotcha. So, like in your club, I mean, did you have to try out, or can anybody join?
No.
Or no, you just anybody.
No,
can join.
anyone can join. Yeah.
Okay. And you don't, the kids don't have to have, if a kid's family doesn't own a boat, like you said, I think they pair kids up with other kids.
For sure. If someone doesn't have a boat, a lot of times there'll be a dad and a son, but they need a partner, so they'll pair that kid that doesn't have a boat with that team, or vice versa. You have, you already have half a team. They'll kind of just put the pieces of the puzzle together and kind of string it together. And like I said, that can a lot of times be done by the club director or president.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's more and more tournaments around the country for high school anglers, right? I mean, they seem to be popping up all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I've noticed the same thing. It's just more and more. There's definitely I've noticed a big push, and I think you can talk to anyone in the industry. There's just a very big push for really junior, high school, and college fishing right now. It's really taking off the past few years.
Yeah, I think the industry is smart. I mean, they're trying to replenish the the talent pool out there to keep the sport exciting, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think they've done a really good job. There's college guys that are on the elite level now that were just a few years ago. You saw them participating in college tournaments that were, right kind of as college fishing, high school fishing was blowing up. Now you see those guys competing and winning high level elite series tournaments, major league fishing tournaments. It's definitely paid off. I agree.
No, absolutely. So, improving your skill and your overall ability as an angler takes a lot of practice and learning. I mean, how do you go about continuing to grow and develop and learn new approaches?
I would say the biggest thing for me is definitely just going out on the water and just observing what the fish do, because it's always different. Every day you go out, it's different. And going out, spending time on the water, learning what the fish do on a day-to-day basis, how they change with weather patterns or seasonal patterns. I think that's really the best way to do it. If I can't get out on the water, I'd say the next thing for me is probably just to watch live fishing footage of pro anglers doing the same thing, spending time on the water. And I don't mean just footage of them, catching fish. I don't mean like highlights. I mean, 8 hours of them on the water, figuring it out, grinding it out, trying to get the bites they need to win, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's really the stakes.
Wow. Yeah, that makes tons of sense. Do you keep any kind of a log or whatever? You can just remember all these conditions.
I do keep a log. I actually do have a log stored in my cloud on my computer, actually, of a lot of conditions on these lakes, especially if it's something unique that I found is kind of like, maybe I don't remember that. Like, I'll just, write down the date, write down the water temperature, the air pressure, wind conditions, wind direction, all that, just so that in the future I can kind of refer back and be like, oh, this worked when the conditions were like this, and kind of go back and forth. I feel like that's just the kind of stuff that can maybe in the long run set me apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that makes tons of sense. I mean, what role do electronics play, in the sport today?
I feel like that really varies on the angler. For me particularly, I love electronics. I feel like it allows me to find fish that certain anglers might not find. I do try to stay sharp on the shallow game too, but I really like to utilize electronics when I can, because I find that it's just, those fish are usually less pressured. And I don't know, I like catching them that way for sure.
Do you think, you're a young person, obviously you've grown up with electronics your entire life. I mean, do you think you have some advantage, for that reason over maybe older anglers who had to learn this stuff as adults?
I think there could be an argument for that. For someone, like you said, that I don't know a world without it, I think a lot of older anglers, they could go and take the time to learn it like I did. Like, I mean, I started on, like I said, on our chain of lakes, just, in a John boat, no electronics, just a trolling motor, just fishing, pretty basic. I started out without electronics. Eventually, obviously, once I got to tournaments and stuff, I felt the need to learn them, but that wasn't always the case. So I think that really anyone, regardless of their age, can choose to learn that electronics game at any time. And it may take more determination from one person to the next, whether just because of previous ideas and like previous fishing styles that they may have stuck in their head, whether they've been fishing shallow for their whole life, and now the game's changed and they might have to change with it.
That's right. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest. I mean, experience in anything really is a huge advantage, but I think the disadvantage to experience is getting set in your ways sometimes. So it's
I agree.
It's a balance, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I do know. I mean, I'm pretty good with electronic like the various electronics, but if I need help in a hurry, I call my nieces. So I will say,
really?
They know in 3 seconds any question, and it might take me a little longer to figure that out.
Then why not? Yeah, I don't blame you then.
So you and your brother Kamden just competed in the 2022 Bassmaster High School National Championship. You both did amazingly well. We were super proud of you both. But I know you had to manage a little bit of heartbreak. I wanted to talk about that and what happened out there.
Well, it was a fun time. Honestly, we went up. So for the national championship, you actually can't be on that body of water for a month leading up to the event. That's just to keep the playing field fair. I like that rule. Like I said, it keeps everyone on the same level. But we did go up right before that cutoff date, to try to kind of just scout out the lake. We hadn't been out there in a while, but it was honestly really good for us. We were averaging weight that would have won the tournament, but the lake changed over the course of that month that we weren't out there. So when we went back for official practice, which you get 2.5 days of, the lake was completely different. It was not the same weights for sure. But we kind of had to adjust, kind of go back to my roots. Like I said, just fishing with my eyes, fishing like I did on my home lake out here. Just kind of fishing with my eyes, fishing with the trolling motor, not using a whole lot of electronics. And we ended up with a pretty good finish. We did, unfortunately, so you take all 314 teams competed on the first 2 days, and they take the top 12, and those 12 fish for the championship on the final day. So going into the second day, we were sitting in 10th, and we slipped a couple spots, ended up tied for 12th, and the tiebreaker actually bumped us down to 13th. So unfortunately, we didn't get to fish the final day, which was definitely a heartbreaker because we didn't get to have our say in that title. But it was still a really fun experience. We learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to fish changing conditions, and it was good to just go back to my roots and fish with my eyes, like I said. And it was, I can't complain about the experience. It was an awesome time.
No, so the fish were much more shallow a month later when you guys went back than they were when you went.
I think the fish were still deep. They had just seen a lot more pressure from all those teams really that were out there, and yeah. Well, all those teams practicing, and just local boats that were out there during that 30 days. I think it just wore down on them, and honestly, I came to the realization that, like, yes, finishing, second or third anywhere in the top 12, like, that's a great finish in this tournament. But at the end of the day, everyone's going to remember who finishes first. And yeah, I wanted to win the tournament. So, and I felt that fishing shallow was going to be probably the best chance of doing that. So I kind of realized that maybe first or second day of official practice, a couple days before the tournament. And so we kind of went all in on that deal, and it almost paid off. We've made a good run at it, but fortunately it didn't pay off all the way. But we're hoping to get back at it, next year at national championship again, hopefully, if we get to qualify.
Yeah. So you had to qualify to be in the tournament at all, correct?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What did you have to do to qualify?
So that's a super complicated process. That's probably going to take me a long time to explain. But basically within Florida, we have 8 qualifying tournaments for a state championship. We qualified for the state championship, which is, I think there were, I don't know how many high school teams. I think there were 65 high school teams this year, in which they took the top 18 to nationals. The top 18 finishers from that state championship, they took to nationals. So we finished, I don't know, we were one of the last spots to get in. I think we finished like 18th in that tournament, but there were a couple teams that had already double qualified that were ahead of us. They had qualified through some of the national circuits. Like I said, it's complicated, so bear with me. But there were a couple teams in front of us that had already qualified through national tournaments, and so, their spot obviously went down to us and a couple spots below us, but I think we were like the 3rd spot in, so.
Nice. Wonderful.
Yes.
So, I mean, the thing is, it was so impressive, I had heard from your dad, how the tournament went, that you had to kind of change the plan pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's super impressive. I mean, how did you, how did you get your mind around what had to be done that quickly? I mean, you just do it.
I think it helped that we had gone out the month before, because in my mind, I saw how much the lake had changed from a month, because we'd spent, when we went up the month before, we probably spent 4 or 5 days straight on the lake. And I just saw how different the fish were acting. Both on my electronics and with my eyes. I saw how different it was, and saw how many boats were doing very, very similar things. And I think it was really wearing down those fish. And honestly, after a day of it, I was just like, I think we're going to have to make a change. And like I said, it almost panned out, but didn't quite. Still a good finish, though.
No, it's a great finish. I mean, it's super impressive. So you're going to be graduating from high school soon. I mean, what's next? Do you have any specific thoughts?
Honestly, nothing specific quite yet. The only constant for me I know is that I'm going to continue to fish tournaments one way or another. I don't know in what way, shape, or form that's going to be, but that's about the only constant I have so far.
Do you have colleges, reaching out to you, interested?
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I definitely have considered that. I've also considered just jumping straight to, some of the semi-pro events. Nothing crazy yet, but maybe just learning some stuff within my region. But like I said, it's really all up in the air. I could end up going to fish for college. I could end up, staying in my hometown and just making money just to try to further my career through just semi-pro tournaments. But I don't know yet. I am dual enrolled and taking college classes right now, so I'm able to transfer those credits to whichever school I end up going to if that ends up being the case. But like I said, it's kind of up in the air right now.
Well, that's good. It's good. I mean, and one of the important things that I know that you're learning is just how to talk to sponsors and have that kind of presence out there. If you want to fish for a living, that's pretty important, so that's
absolutely.
good. I mean, you're on the right track there.
Thank you.
So, what advice would you have for kids interested in competitive fishing? Where could they get started?
Interested in competitive fishing, I would go ahead and try to figure out if your school has a club or a team first. And you might already know, you might have to ask around, you might have a couple buddies that participate. And if that's the case, you can probably get in touch with that club director pretty quick. Another way is you can reach out to one of either the national tournament director, Glenn Kale. He participated and ran the Florida Bass Nation tournament trail, which is what I compete in for a while. And then he actually got promoted and he's running the national trail now. But definitely you could reach out to him. You could reach out to David Driggers, who runs the Florida Bass Nation now. He took over for Glenn. Or honestly, just DM me on social media or something, and I'll try to get something started for you if you want to further compete in bass fishing, because I can probably connect you with the right person to do so.
Yeah, that's great. And you can be found on both Facebook and Instagram at Drew Bradstreet Fishing.
Yes.
So, yeah, DMing you is a great idea. And the other folks, the tournament directors you mentioned as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, good. Well, I wish you nothing but the best of luck as you move through this last year of high school and, of course, beyond. We're following you, rooting for you, and certainly happy to support you in any way we can. And as I mentioned, our listeners can find you and follow you at Drew Bradstreet Fishing on both Facebook and Instagram. I just said that, but just to remind people. And I've included those links to those pages in the show notes as well. Thanks so much for joining me, Drew. It was so fun talking with you.
You too. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the PartsVu Xchange Talks Boating podcast. Are you in a dock war with your boating neighbor for the cleanest boat? Check out our marine soaps, polishes, waxes, and more at PartsVu.com. And for free shipping, use the coupon code PVTalksShine, a special perk for our podcast listeners. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for boating knowledge, to keep in touch with the PartsVu community, and for special sales and promotions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and check out the show notes for the coupon code just mentioned, more information about PartsVu and the products we offer, as well as our boating blog, the PartsVu Xchange. And a big thanks to Mind for performing the original music featured within this podcast.